Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 6 of CultureClubX, powered by CultureMonkey. I'm your host, Darcy Mehta. CultureMonkey is an AI-powered employee engagement platform that helps people leaders listen to their employees and build stronger workplace cultures. CultureClubX is our global thought leadership forum where CHROs and people leaders share insights, discuss emerging trends, and exchange practical strategies for building thriving, future-ready organizations. Today, we are so excited to host Ian O'Keefe, founder and CEO of Ikona Analytics, a people analytics leader with more than 25 years of experience across human capital consulting, HR transformation, and workforce analytics. Ian, welcome. It's wonderful to have you here with us.
Great to see you, Darcy. Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So Ian is a globally recognized HR executive, people analytics leader, and AI entrepreneur with over 25 years of experience helping organizations use workforce data to make better business decisions. He has built and led people analytics functions at Amazon, JP Chase, Google, and American Express. Most recently, as head of people analytics at Amazon, he led a multidisciplinary team that developed data products and analytics solutions supporting more than 400,000 corporate employees worldwide. In 2024, Ian founded Ikona Analytics, a company that helps HR organizations prepare for the AI era by combining consulting, data science, and technology to modernize HR transformation. He also serves as an HR venture advisor, teaches HR analytics at New York University, and is a frequent speaker and author on people analytics and AI. Ian, your experience building people analytics functions inside some of the world's most influential organizations gives you a very unique perspective on why workforce analytics succeeds in some companies and struggles in others. And we're excited to have you discuss our latest topic, data without direction, why analytics and AI fail without the right foundations. So before we dive into our questions, can you just share a little bit about your own leadership journey?
Of course. Yeah. Thank you. You summed up quite a bit of it in that intro, which I appreciate. But I'd say, my journey kind of covers consulting, in-house product development, and then in my most recent kind of turn in my career, starting my own company. And so I think all of that sort of comes together somewhat nicely when you think about the way that HR organizations today are looking to understand patterns and trends externally. They're looking for objective perspectives and experience and seasoned perspectives, not just from those who understand what's happening in the industry, but from those who have sat in the seat and built and shipped. And so it's kind of a natural progression of having done all those things, and fortunate to do that with a couple amazing co-founders, Fritz Rosnow and Bennett Voorhees, who are part of the leadership team, and a lot of the seasoned experience experts and residents that we have at Ikona that are seasoned practitioners as well. So really cool confluence of practitioners, academia, consulting, and scalability through software and AI.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the dream, isn't it? To take, everything you've done and all your amazing experience into now, doing your own thing. So congratulations on that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's just dive into our first question. So you've built people analytics functions at Amazon, JP Chase, Google, and American Express. So what is the single biggest foundational mistake organizations make before they even start measuring anything?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest pitfalls that I've seen, and frankly, have been guilty of at some points, and you learn from your mistakes, is starting with data and tools and the outputs, and not looking at what precedes those outputs, the decisions that need to be made both by leaders and everything that's leading into what you typically control with analytics. And so rushing to stand up reports and dashboards, as a simple example, is something that many people analytics leaders are tasked with doing, or fixing something that's not working well. We can't get the data we need to make basic headcount and workforce planning decisions, as an example. The report is wrong. fixing the report is not the issue. Fixing everything that's upstream transactionally is the issue typically. And that involves going kind of deep into production systems, workflows, the architecture, the point at which transactions are generated by HR teammates and by leaders and managers, and that tends to kind of get pretty wide and out of reach pretty fast. But not acknowledging that ecosystem and just kind of working at the point of where data is consumed is a little bit of a trap.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes perfect sense. So it's not just that the report is wrong, but why is it? What led to that? What created that to happen, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think too a really good grounding question when you're being asked as a people analytics leader to spin up a study or a model or a product are the questions that leaders would answer and the decisions that they'd make with those answers. So what would you do differently, Darcy, if you knew the answer to that question and I created that report for you? Would you change a process or a policy or procedure or an approach that you have with this business or that business? That's usually a great way to frame and reprioritize and maybe reset some of the expectations. So decisions and then sort of the data and the infrastructure and the metrics that would support those decisions is a good place to start.
So, basically you answered the second question, but I'm going to say it again, or something, similar. So at JP Morgan Chase, you inherited fragmented HR data across lines of business and functions, a common starting point for most organizations. So what is the first thing a people analytics leader must do when the data foundation is broken?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One is to, with respect to the vision of what you're building, is to resist the urge right up front to fix everything in all directions at all times and consolidate everything and confuse maybe reorganization as a solve for some of the data fragmentation that's out there. So that's one thing. I think the other is to understand data as an asset and who owns that all the way back to where it's originated and where it's generated. So that is something that I've seen many orgs kind of not quite get right when it comes to the recruiting, comp, talent, L&D, operations functions. Everyone has a role to play in the data ecosystem because if you're hitting submit or you're hitting enter and you control a system or a technology platform in your COE, you're a data generator, and that data goes somewhere. Hopefully it goes somewhere common that can be kind of looked at and analyzed and then productized. But if it doesn't, that's going to create some gaps for you on the analytics side. So that will kind of express itself as the data is incomplete or the foundation is a little cracked and broken. So understanding, kind of back to what we started with, what those key decisions are that you need to make from a leadership perspective, the data and the metrics that you need for that, and then working backwards into the ecosystem to understand what are the most critical workflows and data flows that you need to land and shore up and foundationally get right with boring but important things like data definitions and data quality scanning routines and the like. So that's something that I would encourage PA leaders to do. Think big, but start small and really prioritize what's absolutely necessary rather than doing an ocean boil.
That's great advice. I like that. Think big, have the broader picture in mind, start small. And I really like thinking about it as a data ecosystem, like you said, because in an ecosystem, everything affects everything else and everything, leads to the next. So, that's a good way to think of it for sure. Most HR leaders confuse reporting with analytics. What is the real difference, and why does conflating the two quietly kill the credibility of the entire people analytics function?
Generally speaking, you can think about reporting as looking back at what happened, and analytics as why it happened or what probably will happen. Reporting is often lumped in with analytics because it's a step away. They're close cousins of one another, but I would argue that reporting is really just an extension of your tools, your technology, your processes, and your transactions. So the number of candidates that enter into your ATS, the number of hires, how you're counting human beings on headcount reports, what you're paying people. These are basic reporting of transactions is hard to do, very hard to do, and it kind of speaks to the operational complexity of some of your processes and your programs that are keyed into technology platforms that you have. And there's a lot of ways that can kind of show up poorly, especially when you think about how humans at a company, they have data tagged to them across HR from all different COEs, from they were once a candidate. They are getting paid. They are leaders. They go through talent. There's many domains that have different types of tools that need to be joined and reconciled, and that's the challenge for reporting. And then you throw in, procurement and contingent workers and how finance counts humans at work as opposed to HR, and that gets very definitionally kind of gnarly pretty quickly. But that lives in kind of foundational, I'd say, data capabilities related to governance, data definitions, kind of core common platforms. Analytics is asking what will happen, why did something happen? You're testing hypotheses, you're building models, you're doing A/B experiments, research, and you need rock solid data to do that, or you need to know where the gaps are in data to do that well in a way that's credible. So there's been a pattern over the years of reporting being separated out from people analytics, which I think it depends on where the org is in its journey of understanding kind of its overall data foundations and data ecosystem. But if you have a people analytics leader that has been in charge of and reconciled and consolidated reporting and knows how to put kind of smart prioritized data science initiatives into motion and research initiatives into motion, it would make sense to group those two functions together. And the trap there is that if your ecosystem is not quite as known and diagnosed as you might believe, you risk having really talented, high-priced researchers or data scientists getting pulled into some of the data reporting, reconciliation quagmires that a lot of orgs face, and that's not a good use of their time and skill set. So those are some of the differences I've seen, and it's difficult to tease the two out sometimes.
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, it kind of had me thinking at its most basic level, it's kind of like the reporting is the what happened, what's going on, and the analytics is the why. Why did this happen? And so kind of the way it popped in my head of how to kind of, separate them too. So, okay, let's talk about Amazon. At Amazon, you led analytics solutions supporting more than 400,000 corporate employees through centralized and federated operating models. How do you build a foundation that scales without losing data integrity or decision-making speed?
Yeah, I think that the technology platforms you use and the governance models and mechanisms and processes that you put on top are part and parcel, and that's so key. Amazon and many tech orgs are similar in that you have pretty much any kind of analytic tool that you might need at your disposal, whether it's to organize and rack and stack data within the infrastructure and architecture, or to kind of pull basic reports and dashboards together, or do model training and deployment and predictions and so forth. So I think the key there is to make sure that again, I'm going to say this many times on this chat, but that you understand the the origins of data and create some accountability loops of what needs to be inspected and root caused and repaired if data is showing up poorly or off or wrong downstream. And so the Amazon team that I led, we saw a lot of that and had a lot of those routines and sweeps in our data engineering team and within our reporting and analytics. But then having practitioners and teams embedded in the lines who had access rights to publish data sets that would be kind of sent out from center. Here's the access path, go in and inspect and root cause and remediate. That's something that at that size and scale, you can't do all of that centrally, but you need to allow the right kind of access patterns and permissions into data outside of your team, one team, and allow that for many others with the right training and governance protocols in place to make sure nothing kind of crazy is happening with respect to data access that's unwarranted. But that's very, very key, is to have your governance, security, permissions, and architecture access patterns be kind of matched up to the humans that are doing analytical work inside the org, whether they're on your team or not. You want to strike that balance.
Makes perfect sense. So have everything mapped out and matched up so that it's not just centralized, like you said. Okay, so you've written about how analytics is disrupting HR and algorithms are entering talent decisions, which obviously has been happening. So what does every HR leader need to put in place before AI can safely and ethically sit on top of their workforce data?
Yeah, I mean, AI, we've had AI in HR for a long time, although I'd say in November of 22, I guess it was, when OpenAI dropped GPT 3.5, that was a moment and the start of, I'd say, the arc that we're in now, which is AI writ large is kind of largely kind of aimed at language models and things like GPT and Anthropic. Like how are they disrupting and redefining how HR operates and how companies operate, frankly. So I'll just start by acknowledging that we are having an internet moment. It's probably bigger than an internet moment that we experienced in 1999, 2000. We're having that moment now with AI in HR. How is this new technology and this new kind of pattern of being able to do what we can do with language affecting the way that work will get done? That's pretty similar to what companies were asking themselves in 99, 2000. How can we redefine the way that things get done with this new technology that you can use to search something infinitely and submit information to the cloud, quote unquote, and it goes here instantly? And that sounds silly to talk about now, but it was, pretty hard to get your head around 30 years ago. And so so we're in that moment now, and I think for many HR leaders, it's sort of an inflection point of how understanding how work gets done in HR is not an easy thing. And we would contend at Ikona, and I've seen this over 20 years, is that much of the way that work gets done by people is not encoded into systems. It's not written down into SOPs and guidelines and protocols. Some of it is, and some of that results in the configuration of systems. But so much of how companies operate, and especially HR organizations, is tribal knowledge. It's tacit knowledge in the minds of people sitting in the seat. And that's why so many teams have so many people doing programmatic things that are kind of out of product and manual. And Ian goes to system A, downloads it, emails to Darcy sends to so-and-so, and it goes like those are clues that there's human effort doubling for what technology could do. We just haven't wired it that way for one reason or another. But those clues sometimes point to some things that AI can do quite well. right? And so it's not to say that humans writ large will be replaced in their roles, but some things that we all do could and probably should be automated and augmented with faster ways to get information, consolidate it, look for a pattern, and then send that signal somewhere. That's something that AI, as an example, does quite well. So I think for HR leaders, one of the first things to do is to think about the kinds of activities and tasks that comprise the way that we work, and where we can use AI to augment and accelerate and not replace. There's a lot of buzz of AI is taking jobs, AI is not taking jobs. Like, where are we? I think there's a lot of evidence that AI, is taking some roles, and Oracle filed an SEC filing saying AI is responsible for 21,000 roles. That's creating a huge ripple. There's also plenty of evidence to suggest that AI is replacing tasks and not the entire human in a role, and that's kind of where we stand with it, is that it can replace some of the minutia and the drudgery, and create speed and acceleration and unlocks. And so understanding the tasks and the context that surrounds how work gets done is really, really key to getting a return on an AI investment, and not just relying on the data and the guidelines and what's already written down. I think much of what AI needs, rules, context, judgment, is up here in people's heads, and we have to unlock that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a fascinating topic in and of itself, right? We could talk all day about that. And so it's really interesting to hear your take on it. And I've been hearing similar things for others that we've interviewed on this podcast too. And I like the word you use, augment and accelerate. I was like, those are good points. It's not replace, and it also made me think, like you mentioned, when the internet age, first happened and everything, and that taking a look at how we work, you almost realize it could almost be like, well, we started doing these things because we had this new internet. And then, like you said, those loops of, I download this, then I send this here, you research that. It's like, well, maybe all of that was created. If we could take that away, again, it, frees up humans to, not be tasked with those, like you said, what's the word, mundane tasks. So, I think that's super.
We talk with our clients and in industry about getting, companies and teams getting used to being really good at the manual 47-step task. Then those aren't fake numbers. We see some workflows inside of some of the orgs that we work with, where there's sort of an outrageous number of like workflow steps and process derivatives that you wonder, how did we get there? And taking that and lifting and dropping that into an AI environment, or just putting AI on top of that to read and learn is a mistake. So rethinking, what are we trying to get done? What are the inputs? What are the outputs? And does the current setup help us or hinder us? If you have many people spending hours and hours of time getting something done, that's a pretty decent starting point to look at and say, I wonder if there's a better way. I wonder if is a good starting point.
It's true. It goes back to what you said initially. It's just understanding how we work. Why is something being done? So taking that broader view first, makes sense. So your trademark playbook blends rigorous data science with an operator's feel for change management. Why is change management the most underestimated element of building a successful people analytics foundation?
Because I would say people analytics teams isn't as much about the analytics as it is about the people that generate data that you have to conduct analytics on. And so understanding how people in a place that we call work come together to get things done is the name of the game. And so using data that's available once that happens to generate reports and build models is what a lot of PA teams do. As a practitioner, you start to see where only using the data that is coming out of your core HRIS or your talent system or your ATS, you can do a lot there, but you will run into instances, whether it's in data definitions or competing metrics or historical views that you need to create and build models. You're going to run into instances where you don't have the data you need, or something is wrong, and you need to understand why and what you do. And so looking at back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, looking at the downstream sort of outputs of data as the endpoint of a lot of things happening upstream in the ecosystem with your operations and your technology and the people involved is enormously important. And so you can do that and inspect that. Having been a practitioner and working with practitioners, you have sort of like your war stories and battle scars that you talk about in between sessions at conferences. Those are more than just kind of badges of honor. Those are inspection patterns that you can nowadays scale with the right types of prompts and rubrics with LLMs. And the way that we think about this at Ikona is by having human to human conversations with leaders and subject matter experts and technical experts inside the organization about the things that are not encoded, that are not programmed, that are not currently supported by tools and technology. What's happening out of product? What's happening manually? Where are you spending time? Tell me what your biggest pain points are. That sounds kind of simple, but when you get someone who starts telling you a story for 10 minutes, they'll hit upon a dozen data capabilities and history and a lot of contextual information that AI just won't have access to and that systems won't capture. And so that's where we have the ability now to kind of capture that type of information and then digitize it and make it accessible and readable by machines to do something about. And so that's where I think the next level for a lot of PA teams is turning what otherwise might be considered like water cooler talk into a data asset that you can use to improve a workflow or guide an AI contextually.
It's very interesting. It makes me think I can see how your mind must work, right? If someone's telling you a story, you're like, oh, I see all the data things we could do with this. So
yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's a bit of like a boring exercise. If you and I were having a diagnostic conversation, I said, Darcy, why don't you tell me about the data definitions, the integrity and the quality of data? It's like, no, just Darcy, talk to me about where you spend your time, the kind of tools and systems you use, and the way that the data you need may or may not show up well. Just kind of walk me through it. And how you describe that will hit on a number of things that translate technically, but we can work that out on the back end. We don't need to kind of lead with all of that, and we just want to know what's the experience you're having. Talk to us about what you use, how you get work done, and you're going to say some things that we could have researched and we'll know. All right, so you pull this from Workday and you pull that from from Greenhouse and you pull here and here, but why do you do that? Where does it go wrong? Who do you call? And that never shows up anywhere. And that's the glue that I think is missing in a lot of these conversations.
That's fascinating. I love that. Just, thinking about it that way. So maybe this will help your next question, where I'm going to put you on the spot. So what is the one non-negotiable step every CHRO must take in the next 90 days before investing another dollar in analytics or AI workforce tools?
I think a non-negotiable step is, I would say, governance, ownership, and understanding of your data ecosystem. So do not expect AI to fix it for you. Just like you wouldn't, if we walk backwards from kind of the AI moment that we're in now, I can remember very vividly, 5 or 7 years ago, let's build a machine learning model to fix that. Or backing up from there, won't big data fix this? And backing up from there, how can kind of cloud help us with this? Or backing up from there, how can the internet help us with this? It's like, if you're putting new technology on top of old problems, you're going to amplify old problems. And AI will not only amplify, but AI will confidently and eloquently be wrong and incorrect in convincing ways that are hard to kind of look past. And so that's one non-negotiable, I think, is to before piling in and learning the hard way that your data foundations and your context layers and some of the governance and ownership that comes in any I'd say scalable, high impact data program, you need to take a good hard look at where you are with your understanding of data foundations, governance, ownership across the entire data ecosystem in HR. And then from there, pick and choose smartly where you're going to get higher value returns for the application of a small AI use case to accelerate decision making that needs data that's coming from a solid foundation. And that's a loop, right? So
absolutely. Well, that's great advice, very actionable advice. So thank you for that. So how can real-time employee listening platforms like CultureMonkey strengthen the people data foundation rather than becoming just another disconnected data source?
Yeah, I think listening, I would broaden it to say that listening is and sensing is enormously important. And we've in people analytics for a long time, people analytics teams have either owned or been heavy stakeholders and shapers of the listening agenda inside of organizations. And for a long time, the open-ended survey comments, let's just go there for a minute. For a long time, that was like the bane of many practitioners' existence, because it was, what do you do with that? Like, it's that unstructured spoken word is where I would argue the truth lies more than a quantified value in a lot of ways. And if you can have very intentional ways to capture the spoken word, the shared experience of people, of teams, of orgs, digitize that, synthesize it, analyze it, and then put new types of metrics and pattern spotting and trending to that. That was out of reach up until somewhat recently, and now it's table stakes. And so I think survey providers that aren't moving in that direction ought to be. And so I think platforms like yours and others that are moving down that path are going to be going in a way that helps a lot of orgs transform and not just understand as they did in the past.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's listening and doing it regularly too, right? Because that's how you can see patterns and everything. And I agree about those open-ended questions, and because it's also what is most pressing on someone's mind, that's what they write about. That really tells you a lot about what's going on currently. So, well, Ian, I really enjoyed our conversation today, and thank you so much. Your insights have really highlighted a challenge many organizations face today: having more data than ever before, but not always having the right foundation to turn that data into meaningful action. And from data governance and analytics maturity to AI readiness and change management, today's discussion reinforced that successful people analytics is not just about technology, it's about building the systems, processes, and organizational discipline that allow data to create value. It's clear that organizations that invest in strong foundations first are far better positioned to scale analytics, adopt AI responsibly, and make smarter workforce decisions. And that's where CultureMonkey excels, with pulse surveys and real-time listening capabilities that help organizations capture employee insights, connect engagement data with broader workforce trends, and create a stronger foundation for people analytics and decision making. So before we end, Ian, how can our listeners connect with you to keep this conversation going or to share their own perspectives?
Thanks, Darcy. Real pleasure talking to you today. And LinkedIn is always great to connect with us. IkonaAnalytics.com is where you can find me and the team. And if any of your listeners are in or near the East Coast, particular to the DC area, that's where I hang my hat, and we're up and down at the conference circuit pretty regularly. So you can see us probably next at People Analytics World in the fall.
Amazing. Okay, that's great to know, and definitely encourage everyone to connect on LinkedIn and try to see you at one of those events. And to all our listeners, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe. And that's a wrap for this episode of CultureClubX, powered by CultureMonkey. Until next time, I'm your host, Darcy, signing off.